Origins of music in India would have started in the day-to-day life of ordinary people. A lot of the musical rhythms have been linked to making light of very hard work. Nature would have been one of the defining forces in early music. The rain, the harvest, the thunder, lightning, noises made by birds, by animals. What is unique and different about Indian music is that a distinction is drawn between music of the gods and music of the people. And music of the people is what we now call folk music. Music of the gods is what eventually evolved into what we call classical music.
We don't have a lot of history, we don't have a lot of documented history for music. We started with the Vedas. Some Vedas are understood to be the first form of songs. So it's like a 3-note ta-ra-ra-ran-dan-dan-da-ran. So that's how songs started. The classical music that we know by definition, what we understand by classical music today, there's a lot of Persian influence, there's a lot of Middle Eastern influence into it.
Everything moved along that ancient trading route known as the Silk Route, linking China to Western Europe all across Central Asia. We know the two things that move most easily across borders are religion and music. In India, music was impacted very directly by the coming of Muslim rule to Delhi in the 10th, 11th centuries. They were Turks by ethnicity, but culturally they were Persian. There were a number of dynasties of these Turkish rulers. They were bloodthirsty, politically unstable. It was in this period that music seems to have gone into custody with the Sufis, in which we see the early emergence of what we now call Hindustani music. When the Mughals came to power, they took lands from other Muslims. They took lands from the remnants of these sultans from the Turkish period. So it was a continuation of Muslim rule, but of a very different kind, because the Mughal ambitions were very different. These were relatives of Genghis Khan, they were big time, they were not little sultans. By the time we get to the reign of the greatest Mughal emperor, which is Akbar, known as Akbar the Great, interest and reverence for all the arts, not just classical music, all arts, it's sculpture, painting, dance, poetry, is at its peak. The royal musician at court, a figure called Tansen, quite a big, tall figure in Indian music. It's under Tansen, commissioned by the Emperor Akbar, that the classical rag system as we know today was finally codified and brought to manageable proportions. The whole thing of royal patronage was that it had a very good impact on music. If you got a job as a court musician, you were on a cushy number for life. I don't think since that time musicians have ever known that kind of security.
You had to be better than somebody else for you to survive doing music. So that is how the question of achieving excellence or maybe, becoming better doing music from the other people of the group was a necessary thing for survival.
On the whole, The British Raj was absolutely disastrous for Indian music. The British crown taking power in India coincides with the end of the Mughal Empire, which puts hundreds of musicians out on the streets with nowhere to go. It's been a pendulum. You see the ending of royal patronage and the British crown taking power directly. That initial period is very, very bad for music. It seems to change again in the 20th century for two reasons. Indian musicians start to make journeys outside of India to take their art further afield and meet with huge success. And ironically, success in the West means everybody in India reevaluates their own music. Currently, speaking of the current scene in India, is corporate sponsorship. Of course, they are paid well to do these things, but the music is essentially compromised. Outside of India and in India itself, there are some very, very high quality music festivals running on the values of the old days in terms of content, quality. It's really like a hallmark. Personally speaking, I see a very bright future for Indian classical music because I've seen it turn the corner from about the late 20th century to the present time. There are newer generations being attracted to it.
निरखत बगिया मनवा नहीं सुख पायो सब मिल गाओ